It started with a script, not the kind written for tabloids or gossip columns, but an actual screenplay, a supernatural thriller called Deeper. A story about two lost souls in strange circumstances, drawn to each other by mystery and danger. And maybe that was always the problem. Tom Cruise and Ana de Armas were acting out a story that wasn't meant to be lived. When they first met in early 2025, it was purely professional. Director Doug Liman, who had worked with Cruise before, arranged meetings in London to discuss the film. Dinner conversations turned into creative brainstorming, and creative brainstorming slowly turned into something else. At first, the world didn't notice. It was just two actors talking about a movie that might never even be made. But in the still corners of five-star hotel lobbies and the quiet hum of helicopter engines over the English countryside, chemistry started to rewrite the lines of their story. By May 2025, whispers had become headlines. They were spotted at David Beckham's 50th birthday party, laughing, leaning into each other, their connection too natural to fake. Hollywood was stunned. The world's most calculated movie star and one of its most magnetic rising actresses had become more than co-stars. It was the perfect script for a media frenzy. But no one realized they were watching the first act of something destined to end in quiet heartbreak. Tom Cruise is a man who has spent his life scripting every detail of his image. Born in Syracuse, New York on July 3, 1962, he came from a world of instability and discipline. His father, an electrical engineer, was a man Cruise later described as a merchant of chaos. His mother, a special education teacher, raised him with faith and resilience. 15 schools in 14 years. That's how many times young Tom had to start over. Each move, each goodbye built a survival instinct. By the time he graduated high school in 1980 and moved to New York to chase acting, he'd already learned how to perform not just on stage but in life. Every smile was control, every interview was strategy, every movie role was legacy. He was, in every sense, a man who turned survival into performance. Ana de Armas was the opposite. Born in Havana, Cuba in 1987, her story was one of freedom, or at least the pursuit of it. Her childhood was marked by rationed food, limited access to media, and a deep sense of curiosity that outgrew her surroundings. While Tom was navigating the chaos of a fractured home, Ana was sneaking peeks at the few foreign films allowed in Cuba, dreaming of worlds beyond her reach. At 14, she joined the National Theatre of Cuba, and by 18, she made a choice that would define her life. She left before graduation to escape the government's mandatory service program. With a Spanish passport, a suitcase, and almost no money, she moved to Madrid. Within a few years, her charisma and talent made her a star in Spanish television. Then came Hollywood, and everything changed. Her performances in Blade Runner 2049, Knives Out, and No Time to Die didn't just showcase talent, they showed mystery. Ana was the kind of actress who didn't need to say much. Her eyes did the work, and that was exactly the kind of presence that drew Tom Cruise in. When they met, they were two people on opposite ends of Hollywood's gravitational pull. He had built an empire of control. She was still discovering the boundaries of her independence, and in between those two forces, a spark flickered. The problem was, Tom Cruise doesn't do small sparks, he does explosions. Those close to the couple said Tom moved fast. Within weeks, there were flowers, gifts, dinners that blurred the line between affection and obsession. The Mission Impossible star, known for his intensity both on and off screen, seemed captivated by Ana's spontaneity. But for Ana, who had fought hard to build her autonomy after years of being defined by her relationships, it was too much, too soon. Friends described her as playful, mischievous, alive, but they also said she valued space, something Tom didn't know how to give. Tom's relationships have always carried that same rhythm, swift, passionate, public, and then suddenly gone. It's a pattern born from a man who doesn't just fall in love, but tries to direct it. And maybe that's where the story started to fracture. In interviews, Ana often spoke about freedom, how growing up in Cuba without choices taught her to cherish the right to say no. Tom, on the other hand, had built a life around never hearing it. The age difference didn't help either. At 63, Cruise was entering a stage of legacy, while Anna, at 37, was entering her prime. She was headlining action movies, exploring new roles, defining her voice as a producer. She didn't want a leading man in her life, she wanted her own spotlight. Insiders say the turning point came in late summer 2025. After months of speculation and public sightings, Anna reportedly put the brakes on it. She loved his energy, but couldn't handle the pace. Cruise, who believed things were moving towards something serious, possibly even marriage, was blindsided. He felt betrayed. One source said he thought they had a connection deeper than a fling, but for Anna, it wasn't betrayal, it was self-preservation. They both handled the breakup with grace, at least in public. There were no social media posts, no cryptic quotes, no press statements, just silence, the kind that says everything. Behind that silence, though, was humiliation. For Tom, it wasn't just a breakup, it was another reminder that control has its limits. He had been left before, by Nicole Kidman, by Katie Holmes, and each time the ending came the same way. Quiet, decisive, and entirely out of his hands. For Anna, it was liberation, not because she didn't care, but because she finally stopped feeling like she had to. She didn't want to be defined by someone else's legacy, even if that someone was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood history. Their upcoming movie, Deeper, became a metaphor for their relationship, a story about attraction, danger, and the unseen. But as their real-life connection faded, so did the film's momentum. Production was put on hold, indefinitely. Maybe because no one wanted to relive the story off-screen. Maybe because real heartbreak doesn't need a sequel. Still, both sides are said to remain amicable. They talk, they respect each other. They even hope to finish the movie one day. But everyone who knows them knows it'll never be the same. Because some connections aren't meant to be revisited. They're meant to be remembered. Tom Cruise is still Tom Cruise. Intense, magnetic, lonely in ways fame can't fix. Ana de Armas is still Ana de Armas, luminous, untamed, writing her own story with each new role. And maybe that's how it had to end. Two actors playing out a romance neither of them wrote, a love story that burned bright, fast, and brief. Like every great movie, it left an impression, but unlike a movie, there was no final take, no applause, no perfect ending, just two people walking away, each carrying the weight of what almost was. In a world where everything is public, sometimes the most powerful story is the one told in silence.